love this bell. And, the reality is it's, calling the neighborhood to worship, we don't have it on a schedule, but, it's a call of celebration as well. And it also just, it reminds me of the call out to the world for all people to gather in worship of the Lord. And as we celebrate this 20th Sunday in Ordinary Time, all of our readings really speak to this reality as well. From the prophet Isaiah, talking about foreigners coming to minister to the Lord and, having a place prepared for them in that way. He's going to take care of them. The responsorial psalm, as well speaks to the same thing. St. Paul talks about making the Jews jealous by ministering to the Gentiles and having them come to faith. So it's all about this movement of people. And then when we get to the gospel reading, I don't know, this is one of those really special readings that makes people stop and think and ponder. And I think because we just don't have it in our consciousness, these different groups of people. This was a Canaanite woman. Sometimes we hear Syrophoenician. And, these are pagan people that actually the Israelites were called to drive forth from the land, from the promised land, when they came into their possession. So that's the context. Pagan, someone who worships idols, false gods, demons. That's who's coming to Jesus and pestering the apostles and him. So, keeping the divides that they do between, faithful worship and way of life versus, the Gentiles who are worshiping demons, right? There's nothing, so terrible about the disciples, having some level of aversion to this situation. Maybe their hearts aren't quite right and, just get her out of here, Jesus, get her out of here. All right, and it's not quite right, but Jesus himself knows exactly what this situation is, and he knows exactly what's in this woman's heart. As far as she is, as a part of her people from, worshiping the Lord, she's still coming to him knowing that he can promise some sense of hope in the restoration of her daughter that no one else can. The fact that she is even coming before him and bowing down, doing homage before him, she's worshiping him. She is one of those Gentiles prophesied about, coming before God himself and laying down her life in worship. Did you notice the sun just came out? It just got explosive. Ooh, man, I almost got goosebumps. But, Jesus goes on, and yes, he says this line about, it's not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs. He's not calling her a dog. He's making a distinction between the faithful children of Israel and those who worship demons, right? He's making the distinction, and not so much to keep her apart, but that she might have an opportunity to express the depth of her faith in her words as well, with great humility and trust in him and his power to heal and restore. Yes, Lord, even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from their master's table. Oh, goodness gracious. The tenderness that is even in that response, and the tenderness with which Jesus loves her in that moment and restores her daughter to life, it's profound, and unfortunately sometimes our own baggage gets in the way. Like, did Jesus just sin? Did Jesus do that? No. Jesus knows the depth of every longing and every need and every movement of heart coming to him in worship. And we just let this be an opportunity to glorify him in all that he's done, and also that we might so profoundly lay down our own lives in worship of him.